Hi everyone! Today we are going to go over the 4 main terms for figurative language that you will probably encounter. Our first word that we're going to go over is a simile. Now this is a comparison between two unlike things, usually with the words like or as. For example, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Now the reasoning that this is a simile is the dream is being compared to a dried up raisin. This is a simile and it means that the dreams decay and loses its life hope. Kind of a depressing example. One thing I do want to mention on here is be very careful when you are looking for similes, because just because like or as is in a sentence does not make it a simile. You have to make sure that that comparison is there, just like in this one. It is comparing the dreams to a raisin, right, and being dried up. So just make sure that you double check that a comparison is found in the sentence to make sure it's a simile. The next term we're going to go over is a metaphor, a figure of speech that implies a comparison between two relatively unlikely things. So unlike a simile that has like or as in the sentence, this is an implied metaphor. And you might, or an implied comparison, and you might need to use some inferences to determine if the metaphor is there or not. So here's an example. The children were roses grown in concrete gardens, beautiful and forlorn. So the reasoning that this is a metaphor is the children are being compared to roses growing in concrete. That's the comparison. Even though there's no like or as, that's the comparison that's being made. This means that they were beautiful, even though they grew up in an unpleasant or hostile environment. So it's saying those concrete gardens were that unpleasant, hostile environment. Our next term we're going to go over is personification, the giving of human qualities to an animal, object, or abstract idea. So an example of this would be the sunshine smiled down upon us as we swam in the deep blue sea. Now the reasoning is here the sun is given the ability to smile, which is a human characteristic. The fact that the sun is smiling gives the impression that the sunshine is welcome and pleasant. The sun can't actually smile, right? So we're giving it that human-like quality, which leads us to personification. Lastly for today, we have hyperbole, an exaggerated statement used to emphasize a point. Here's the example. My house is 1,000,000 miles from here. The reasoning for this is the house is not actually 1,000,000 miles away. That is not possible. It is an exaggeration to emphasize the fact that the house is extremely far away. Be careful with personification and hyperbole. Both use very similar things, right? Personification is giving something a human-like quality, and then hyperbole is being very, very exaggerated or extreme. How we're going to wrap this up today, before we move on to our next activity, is in the chat. I would like you to come up with your own simile, metaphor, personification, or hyperbole example. Make sure it's an original one, not one you just, find online or have heard before. Try to come up with something clever and share it in the chat. Please label your example, so if you do a simile, maybe say simile and then your example. Metaphor, example. Personification, your example. Hyperbole, your example. And then we'll discuss how the examples were done. After that, your teacher will tell you what to do next.